Alright, now we're going to complete page 22, and on page 22 we're going to talk about factoring cubics. So go ahead and turn to page 22 and make sure you add in your title of Factoring Cubic Polynomials. So we're going to start with a polynomial x cubed minus 3x squared minus 13x plus 15. And in order to factor this, we need to know what one of our factors is so that we can get this down to a quadratic that we are able to factor. We know that we have to have a number that is a factor of this final term. So good numbers to check here. So these are just guesses. We don't really know. We could try maybe a factor is x minus 3, or maybe a factor is x minus 5. And those we're choosing because we have this 15 and we know that 3 and 5 are factors of 15. So in order for this to be a factor, either one of these, we can use our remainder theorem and find out if we have a remainder of 0 for either of those. So when we plug in 3 into this function, we get 3 squared minus 3 cubed minus 3 times 3 squared minus 13 times 3 plus 15. And that actually gives us an answer of negative 24. So that tells us we know that x minus 3 is not a factor of our polynomial. So now we're going to try x minus 5. And when we plug in 5 cubed minus 3 times 5 squared minus 13 times 5 plus 15, that equals 0. So that tells us that x minus 5 is indeed a factor of this polynomial. So in order to get this down to a cubic, we need to divide out that factor of x minus 5. And I like to use synthetic division. So we're going to put our 5 out front. Remember that we cannot use the negative 5. We have to use the opposite of whatever our divisor is. So 5 goes here, and then from our original polynomial, the coefficients of 1, negative 3, negative 13, and 15 go along the top. Okay. So we bring down our 1, and then we multiply. 5 times 1 gives us negative 5, and then we add. Negative 3 plus 5 gives us 2, and 5 times the 2 gives us 10, and when we add, negative 13 plus 10 gives us negative 3, and 5 times negative 3 gives us negative 15, and we get the remainder that we were expecting of 0. So now we need to rewrite the solution that we found as 1x squared plus 2x minus 3, and we're going to take all of that times the thing we were dividing by is x minus 5. So we know we found one factor that was x minus 5, but we still have this quadratic function that we have to check to see if we can factor that anymore. To do that, we're going to set up a factor puzzle to help us out. Negative 3 goes on the top, 2 goes on the bottom. And yes, we can find factors if we use 3 and 1. If we make that 1 negative, 3 times negative 1 gives us negative 3, and 3 plus negative 1 gives us 2. So we found our two factors, and we can come fill those in. X plus 3 is one factor. X minus 1 is our second factor that we found, and our original factor of x plus 5. Remember that originally we had a polynomial that was degree 3, and so we were expecting to find 3 factors, or at most 3 factors, and we found x plus 3, x minus 1, and x minus 5. And since we found the 3 factors we were looking for, we are done.